Alright, video number 2. This is out of the self-sufficient backyard. Let's see. This one is sketch details. Let's break down the plan sketch, and I'll give you the reasoning for the location of each element. Refer to the related chapter for more detail. We put the basic house structure on the map and worked the rest of the elements around it. First, a word about trellises. Trellising is an important growing method as it maximizes the return for the least amount of space. In other words, trellises make the most efficient use of space when growing garden crops that can be trained to grow vertically, such as peas, pole beans, winter squash, melons, etc. Many materials can be used to fashion trellises. Chicken wire, mesh netting. Chicken wire would not be great for heavy plants, though, because chicken wire is it doesn't stand up well. Mesh netting, wooden lattice work, wood fencing, or a solid wall of some sort, or cattle panel works great for that. There's lots of things that you can use for trellises. Trellises made of a solid structure create a little microclimate for plants set in front of them. Painting a solid structure white or lining with a reflective surface will help utilize any available light for better growth too. Any material used for the trellis needs to be compatible with what is being grown in front of it. By that, I mean anything that climbs or that you will train to climb upwards needs to have a trellis with lattice work or holes through which the vines can intertwine. Additionally, I positioned a couple of trellises to act as an edible landscape structure that create a delineation between adjoining sections, much like a fence. Trellises T1, T2 are located so the shading they create should not be an issue to other plants. Both T1 and T2, trellis 1 and trellis 2, are permanent lattice work fixtures remaining in place year-round. Partial shade trellis, which is trellis number 3, is a solid wall type of trellis that is being used to not only define the property line, but to also create a microclimate for permanent plants more suitable to partial shade such as rhubarb, horseradish, and mint. I would paint the wall white so it reflects light onto the plantings. Together with the orchard, grapes, raised beds, and berry patches, the partial shade permanent trellis creates an edible barrier or fence as well as a partial windbreak around the homestead perimeter. The grape trellis, which is trellis number 4, is a dedicated area for growing some grapevines vertically, part of an edible landscape barrier fence. You will note the greenhouse, GH, is attached to the south side of the house. That arrangement is the best utilization of available space. Because the greenhouse is attached to the house, it is well anchored, protected from north winds, can be used as a passive heating system to supplement home heat in the winter if house windows are inside the greenhouse, and because one side, the north wall, is attached to the house, it's already insulated. The arrangement makes for easy access in winter and summer, and the greenhouse becomes a more versatile season extender, which allows potential growing in winter. I chose to locate the strawberry bed, or SB, directly in front of the greenhouse, abutting the greenhouse wall, south sides. They will benefit from the microclimate created there, which enables them to get an early start in the spring. They grow low to the ground and can take being buried in the snow without damage. This is important since all snow will slide off the greenhouse, which would damage normal shrubs and plants. The chicken coop and chicken run, CC and CR, are conveniently located close to the home for easy monitoring. I'm going to have to remember that. Feeding and egg collection. The 8x4 The 8 by 12 foot was sized for a starter flock with room to expand or to temporarily house meat birds. The 10 by 15 run is enough room for a starter or expanded flock. The attached shed is for tool storage, or TS, and is centrally located to the homestead, accessible along the main walkway. There are 3 main walkways just wide enough for ease of travel when pushing a wheelbarrow. Side chutes off main travel paths are narrower. I'd suggest 3 feet for main corridors out of the house and 2 feet for secondary paths. The dual compost bins, or CB, are located by the chickens. It's a convenient location for kitchen scrap disposal, as well as chicken coop cleaning. Centrally located to the garden area means the compost can be efficiently utilized throughout the homestead's gardens, while at the same time making addition of fresh materials from anywhere on the homestead easy and convenient. The culinary herbs, or CH, is a 3 by 9 foot plot on the south side of the chicken house to take advantage of the microclimate created there. It's also handy to the house so the cook can easily run out and fetch fresh culinary herbs. The asparagus section, or AS, is a dedicated area that will always harbor these roots as they are perennials, meaning that they are a permanent planting that comes up each year. However, if asparagus is unwanted, the area can be used as a standard vegetable bed for other crops. Water storage tanks, or WS, are positioned so they can utilize the roof area to catch and contain roof rainwater for irrigation. The tanks are located on the cooler, shaded north side of the house to deter the growth of algae. They are set up so either a bucket can be put under their faucet for filling a hose, or a hose can be attached to run water to various vegetable beds. It's a good idea. If using buckets, you would manually lug the water to wherever it's needed. The north side of the house is also the perfect place for the barrel root cellar, or BRC, if one is desired. It's a shaded, cool location that's conveniently close to the house for easy access. The raised containers section, RC1, which is located close to the house, has flexible use. The area can harbor standard raised beds, but it could also accommodate platforms with containers situated on top for an elevated container garden. The containers or raised beds would be a perfect solution for the elderly or disabled, as they are easily accessible from the home and to water storage for irrigation. Or it can be an area dedicated to hay, straw bale gardening. All of these are good solutions for those not wishing or unable to stoop low to a garden. To squeak a little more growing space out of the plot, one could terminate 2 of those designated raised container RC1 rows into 2 keyhole gardens, or KH. In addition to this whole section being well suited for those less mobile, these beds are another way to recycle and compost the kitchen and garden waste, as well as any excess gray water. This makes it a nice setup for our arid climate friends. The traditionally tilled, or TT, plot is broken into 3 sections. A large area for growing and rotation of corn, potatoes, and legumes. Each year the crops are rotated on a 3-year cycle. Corn does best when grown in blocks and does well after a planting of potatoes. There are certain vegetables, such as corn and potatoes, we would not consider growing in anything but a traditional tilled plot. Horseshoe beds, or HSB, along the south property border are flexible and can be made into either raised beds, hay straw bales, or platforms with containers. In my opinion, a horseshoe configuration is the most efficient use of space, yet is easily accessible for working. By my calculations, at least 33% more space is available for planting than if raised beds with long access rows were built. The orchard, or OR, is set on the northwest corner of the homestead to act as a natural windbreak and edible border. Ideally, the orchard should be behind a windbreak, but this simple sketch is for a bare piece of open land, so the orchard trees in this example become a windbreak. Erecting a permanent solid fence on the property line around the orchard would be beneficial and effectively create that windbreak for the fruit trees. The trees are set in a group for best pollination. Speaking of pollination, the beehives, or BH, were placed in the orchard so they would be near blossoming trees where the bees can do their thing. They are set in an area that will have the least amount of disturbance for the bees, be shaded in summer, yet exposed to sun in the winter. The hives are also the furthest away from the house and the people. The hive entrance faces south, so the bee's natural flight pattern is away from the house and not towards the neighboring property. Any permanent border fence around the orchard would help protect the bees as well. Berry patches, BP1 and BP2, are mostly sunny, partially shaded area that would be suitable for any of the following: raspberries, blackberries, gooseberries, red and black currants, cherry trees, elderberry, huckleberry, kiwi, serviceberry, pawpaw, and strawberries, all of which are partial shade tolerant plants. Berry patch trellis T6 would be a good place to train black raspberries. The T6 and T7 trellises also provide privacy for passersby on the road. Since the berry patches are in the front yard, visual to all, it makes sense to keep it neat, orderly, and visually pleasing to neighbors and anybody passing. To that end, I would suggest setting all plants in neat rows with a strip of grass that would be mowed in between each row. The rows of fruiting plants should be all nicely mulched. I would make the front yard plants essentially permanent to avoid yearly tilling in the front yard. Yearly tilling draws attention to your gardening endeavors, makes the front yard less visually appealing, as well as susceptible to erosion in a downpour. In regards to the neighbors, offering an occasional homemade fruit pie from your spare fruit can't hurt the cause either. Regarding space for the kinds of berries you choose to grow, check for the appropriate row spacing, but a reasonable distance would be 4 foot between the rows. Less distance between rows of strawberries, 3 feet would be good for them. Human manure compost bins, or HMC, are kept far from the home, kept far from the well or homestead water source, and kept as far as practical from the majority of edible plants. It is close to the orchard where its end product will be used to fertilize fruit trees. Raised containers, or RC2, are located near the human compost bins. I did not want to waste the space, but because safety was paramount. I situated raised containers here to minimize food contamination due to close proximity to human waste. Additionally, they are an efficient use of the small area. Shade-tolerant beds, or SH, on the east side of the house are good for fruits, such as red and black currants, gooseberry, legionberry, or lingonberry, or leafy vegetables such as lettuce and spinach. We realize that depending on the orientation of your house, these beds may be considered partial shade beds, but we want to include shade-tolerant information in the event that you have shaded areas on your property you wish to utilize. Partial shade beds, or PS, can be used for more herbs, leafy vegetables, and more fruiting plants. Raised beds, or RB, are traditional raised beds perfectly suited for growing most vegetables, but they are great for root crops such as beets, carrots, parsnips, etc. These beds are also beds that are properly oriented to take full advantage of the sun when covered with hoop houses in early spring. With the hoop houses, you can get an early jump on spring planting. Medicinal Gardens, or MG, is located in the horseshoe bed directly next to trellis T7. It's a square block on the sketch only to make labeling easier. This horseshoe bed can be a conventional bed, raised containers, or keyhole. The important thing is the path in the middle to give access to the entire bed. And that was the sketch details. So that explained the sketch from the last video that I did on this one. So, which was the sketch. So, the next one from the Self-Sufficient Backyard is Chapter 3 in Site Selection. Alright, so that's that one. And I will go ahead and wrap that one up. And I will like I said, I'll be uploading these throughout the day tomorrow. Sorry, I'm tired. I'll get off from here, and I will see you on the next video. Bye, guys.